Hey,
What
what's
up,
really
great
good,
people?
folks?
So y'all know what it is. It's Tuesday nights.
Yeah, 10
I
o'clock.
am AD.
This is D in the building, gang.
All right, and we are going to be discussing tonight
Yeah.
toxic traits in
And
communication.
Not just toxic traits in communication, but toxic traits
And communication.
So let's talk about that. Let's put this together a little bit. So this was actually not even my topic of choice, but I thought it was actually really great. Toxic is a word that we hear thrown around quite a bit. So I wanted to go ahead and touch on this while we could. I'm gonna let Honey take the lead on this one this time.
All right. So basically, we are going to take the time to call them how we see them and identify not only in our spouses, but more importantly, within ourselves, what we consider the things that we do that are toxic in communication.
Okay.
So,
and how those toxic traits affect your communication.
Very important fact. Very important fact. Thank you so much. I'm glad you got my back and my front, baby.
Period. I got you.
But so like myself, I am an overthinker. Oftentimes, too little or too much is put into something when it comes down to how I interpret it. Most times, it's because I feel as though it's just not that small on that level. Yeah. It's got to be a little bit more to it. Yeah. Well, how come this? Or why was that? Or what was that look? Or what was that response? Or why this response?
Yeah.
So just being real with myself and being real with you guys, because that is what we're here to do. I am the overthinker. Oftentimes, because I am an overthinker, that can often lead to hostile circumstances where we're trying to communicate.
Yeah.
It has left her with a vulnerable state of mind because her peace is disturbed. So I'm gonna wear that and say what it is that I need in order to not create those energies and put the boundaries around what it is that we're trying to build as we're continuing to build. So with me knowing that I oftentimes can be an overthinker, I try to communicate with her thoroughly.
Yeah.
I set the standard of what it is that I want in return. So I tell her, hey, babe, listen, this is what I'm doing. This is who I'm with. This is what I got going on. This is what it's going to be consisting of.
Yeah.
That way, in response to what it is, I've already set the bar, and I have someone that will go ahead and will say to me, sweetheart, this is what I'm doing. This is what I consist of. This is who I'm with. This is how this is going, so on and so forth. And though it may seem a little bit tedious, because sometimes she like, well, I didn't know such and such. You only explain when you feel as though you've done something wrong.
And so we actually go back and forth a little bit about that explaining thing.
Yes.
I'm really big on all sorts of types of communication, and I understand that there's different types of people. So I also understand that with different types of people and different types of communication, for me, an explanation is not when you've done something wrong, but an explanation is another form of communication, because maybe when I said it the first time, or I explained it the first time, or we went through it the first time, maybe you didn't understand.
Right.
So for me, an explanation is, okay, well, I thought we were clear on this, so let me just explain a little bit more. Let me go into a little bit more detail. What I meant was, or what actually happened was this or that. But we have flat out had a lot of miscommunications because his particular style of communication is not my particular style of communication.
And we have still managed to make it all this time. So when you speak two different love languages, it does not mean that you need to discard your relationship. You can actually hold on to that relationship and harvest some really good things within it. It's just all about how bad you want it and truly how much you're willing to put into it. We have gone through the financial burdens. We have gone through the heartaches. We have gone through the infidelities. We have gone through the lack of trust and many other circumstances. However,
as well as a flat out lack of communication. Not that we were not communicating well, we were not communicating. Like, we just were not talking to each other. We were not talking in a fashion that people could that we could understand,
that made any sense to us, let alone anyone else. So where we are now in our relationship and what we are doing now, we have practiced so many different things on so many different levels to be able to invoke all that stuff like one big gumbo of love to get exactly what it is that we want. And that's the recipe and formula that we want to share with you guys tonight.
Not the gumbo of love.
Yeah. You know, so that's exactly what we want to do. And we thank you guys for tuning in with us.
Truly we do. It makes a world of a difference for us to know that you're out there listening, tuning in. All the love is more than appreciated. We really are not yet in a position to thank you guys the way that we want to, but it's coming, so stay tuned. Listen, we're selling hope, not dope.
And I'm just a hope dealer, you know. So when it's all said and done, we hope that you guys get enough out of these blogs and these series with twice the advice, that you're willing to fight the good fight and keep these things that you call love dear to your hearts and right where they need to be, in your home and intact, most importantly. Right now, I'm just taking the time to take my wife on a little trip down memory lane. When we first got together, things were so wonderful. I didn't have to ask her to do this or that. The intimacy was wonderful. The sex was even better. There were so many different things that we were willing to give without question. But as you mature with each other, I noticed that I bear witness to so many different people growing apart in relationships, learning to not appreciate each other or being comfortable and complacent with the amount of appreciation shown.
Yeah. Or lack thereof of appreciation shown.
Indeed. So I came up with a way of just trying to make sure that I could communicate with her thoroughly. So I would say to her, hey, babe, listen, I'm in this with you. At this time, if there's anything that you feel like you need to discuss with me, all gloves off, no holds bar, is there anything that you feel like you need to say to me? I don't have to tell her that I have a right to know. But if there's anything that you feel that you need to express to me, whether it be something personal that you haven't said or something that you feel you've kept from me, doesn't have to be deception, just something that's just need to be expressed. All those things, lay it out here right now, right? Just put it on out there. And there's nothing to be held against you. Just lay it out here on the table. Yeah. Because one of the worst things that you can do in a relationship is put yourself in a circumstance where someone else is able to tell you about what your spouse is doing, or you hear from someone else how your spouse feels or has responded to something that you've done. These are all toxic things. We're going to focus on these toxic things and how to eradicate them out of our relationships so that we can keep on pushing, baby, because man, it's a land of milk and honey just on the other side, if you ever follow and if you ever willing to fight to get there.
All right, so I'm gonna take a little bit of a different approach, because one of the things that we always want to make sure that we're focusing on while we're doing this is we want to make sure that we're separating situations from people. There's a difference between having toxic traits and being a toxic person.
Indeed.
So you have to be able to identify, and to me, it may be simple, but you may be in a point or in a position in your life where it's difficult for you to identify the difficult trait versus the difficult person.
I put it in perspective like this. We are creatures of habit. And if you practice something learn long enough, those character flaws become character traits. Once they become traits, you're perfectly comfortable in setting your way with doing what it is that you do. There are so many people that have become vulnerable and lonely, lost, and suffered quality and potential relationships because of their own frustrations, because of the things that they weren't willing to commit to, and the things that they were already committed to.
As well as things that you were not willing to face
Mm.
causes a lot of toxicity. I can say for myself firsthand, there were a lot of different situations that I had gone through that I had convinced myself, this is all internal, that I had convinced myself was not worth sharing with the world. I didn't know what people's opinion of what it was that I had gone through, or what it was that I had experienced, and what it was that I was facing. So I just kept it to myself, like, yeah, well, I'll keep that one to myself. I'm not gonna share that. And that was not to be misleading or deceptive. That was some more of that luggage that you'll hear me constantly talk about. You have to unpack your stuff. You have to forgive yourself. You have to get beyond yourself. You have to get beyond the things that you've gone through, because holding on to that stuff, that is what makes you toxic.
Come on, bring it home for me.
That's what makes you toxic. So holding on to past relationships, holding on to childhood trauma, holding on to things that didn't go right, holding on to, like Babe likes to say all the time, the shoulda, woulda, couldas, you know what I'm saying? Holding on to those things adds to your ability to be toxic. You could be a wonderful person, but not being willing to face your own stuff. You packed it up, and not being willing to face that stuff, it will make you seem toxic to people. And I don't think that as a society, men and women, black, white, whatever color you want to call it, or whatever gender you want to go by, I don't think that we do a good enough job of holding each other accountable for the good, the bad, and the ugly. And one of the things that I, with my husband, and aside from my husband, and I try to make a really good habit of doing, is saying, like, listen, I'm gonna say this to you now, and I don't want you to take it the wrong way, because it's all in love, but you ain't right.
Yeah, two very different styles and formulas for the love language that we now speak. We're coming from opposite sides of the track. However, when you speak a different love language, if you want something bad enough, you will pick up a second language. You will what is it called, baby? What's the language thing?
I'm not.
Rosetta Stone.
I'm not.
You will pick up the Rosetta Stone.
Well, think about it this way. I know when I was a kid growing up, right? We grew up in Miami.
Right.
And we would see so many people. I know when I was really, really young, I'm talking about like elementary school young, I would see black men, white men, white women, black women get married to these men and women who spoke no English at all.
Mm-hmm. That is definitely something that's true. We would see a lot of that.
It's like, how do you guys even communicate?
Right.
And they're like, we figure it out. And so now that I'm an adult and I can look at things from a different perspective, that's what me and my husband have been doing. Like, we genuinely are in love with each other. So even though we were speaking different love languages, we just kind of figured it out.
We had no choice but to. The bishop said, y'all ain't gonna leave each other alone, so you might as well get it right.
She was serious about that. And I don't think we even realized to what extent the magnitude. Yeah, we really didn't understand how we were pushing so hard for each other, yet pushing so hard against each other, if that makes any sense at all. We were doing a lot of tug of war. And I would always say to him, I'm on your team.
Yes. Repetitively. Sometimes more than one time in a day. As a man, we do not like any uncertainty. If there's something that we feel as though we have to question more than once, we potentially will begin to treat you how you make us feel. So I, for one, will tell you, And after going through all of the different things and circumstances that I have with my wife, after treating her how she's made me feel on several occasions, in several instances, over the course of many years, I now understand that mistreating her mistreats my own self, because I don't feel good and I don't feel justified with my actions after saying certain things to her, coming from the background and having the amount of passion that I once possessed.
What you gonna do with all that passion?
Child, I'm gonna put it to work.
Yeah, you better.
Now, now, once upon a time, it would allot me to say disrespectful things,
Yes.
degrading things,
Yes.
call her out of her name,
Yes.
chip away at her integrity as a person and
Yes.
her pride as a woman. However, I now know I have to pour and spill out so much more love to help to mold the image that I want her to see me as she evolves.
So I'm glad that he made mention of that, because my husband's not privy to this, but a lot of women come to me and ask, how do you deal with this situation? How do you deal with this circumstance? And that takes me back to kind of like the topic for tonight, the difference between toxic traits and toxic people.
Mhm.
I understood that although he was exuding toxic traits, he was not a toxic person. And it was very difficult sometimes to separate that. I'm not going to say or make it seem like it was easy. It wasn't. And I'm pretty sure he could say one and the same on the receiving end from some of the things that I've put out there. But there is a true difference between someone who is a just outright toxic person. When they are in your space, nothing but negativity comes from that. When they are around you, it just seems like everything seems to go wrong. That is the universe identifying that this person is not good for you if they're around and you're constantly losing.
So for my Christian people, the Bible says that you judge a tree by its fruit.
Come on now.
And when you look at certain things in people, oftentimes, if you're anything like me, then you will identify something in a person and you categorize them as other people that you have met in passerby.
Those associations.
Right. So if someone does something to me and it brings me to a familiar place or emotion, I say, oh, you are this person. No need to mention names. That's not what we're here for. However, I will say, you're like this person. And because you're like this person, my spidey senses tell me that certain things I can expect out of you.
I know you do.
There are certain character traits that I am going to see that are going to definitely show themselves when you show your true colors.
Now watch this. I've said to my husband several times over the years that is a toxic trait.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot take a single situation and categorize a person into what you feel that they are simply because you've dealt with someone in your past that has shown you similar things. A person could genuinely just be in a bad space.
Indeed. So I'm glad that you said that, because what we have oftentimes dealing with adults is we have adults that have suffered from certain traumas that never outgrow those circumstances. We have adults that have so much unforgiveness in their hearts. We have adults that are grown children and they never get beyond that place where this bad circumstance happened, or even where all the times that you told them yes, the one time that you told them no,
it's a full-on tantrum.
Most horrible person in existence.
Well, now I'm going to not challenge, but hopefully give you a different perspective on what it is that he just said. I am a firm believer. You ever hear the term, children are so cruel? You know that term? Oh my God, kids are so cruel. You got to be careful. You know, those kids are so cruel. I want to really kill that concept that children are cruel, because the truth of the matter is people are cruel.
Indeed.
Children are just little people. And if you have some little people, then you can probably identify that your little person from very young, 2 years old, 3 years old, they already begin to identify their
and show
own
you
character.
certain characters. I say oftentimes, because we have 6 children.
Yes, we do.
We watch them pick identities.
Yes.
Oftentimes throughout their growth, you will see them pick certain identities, and they will mimic things that they see from different people in individual circumstances. So as you watch this, you kind of gotta shape those children to get them to say, hey, we not having that. Or listen, that's okay for you to do, but that's not going to always be something that you continue to do, because what doesn't come out in the wash comes out in the rinse.
And it's totally okay. Just kind of shifting gears, because that's kind of like where I feel like this is going. But you have to talk to your children like people.
As if they are adults.
They're people. It has nothing to do with an age, because some of the best advice I've ever gotten has come from children.
Very good point.
Some of the best advice I've ever gotten in life has come from children. And so you have to kind of shift the way that you're thinking about or handling these kids, because yes, they're children, but you technically by law, you only spend 17 years of your life as a child. And then the rest of your life, for however long that may be, you're an adult. So you have to prepare these children from very young to understand adult concepts, to understand what conversations are like, identify those toxic traits in your children early. Don't be blind to some of those things. Identify them, call them out. And it's okay if you hurt their feelings. It's your job as their parent to self-identify. Don't let your child be the child to grow up and become an adult and have to hear about your toxic traits from another adult, but your parent never told you.
Come on. Well, I would definitely agree with everything that you just said. And to go along with that, it's one and the same with adults. When you have an adult who is a grown child and they display certain things to you, you have to call them on that. You have to tell them that was very childlike what you did. You have to tell them it was quite immature for you to respond or react the way that you did. I didn't need that. I wasn't expecting that. I expected more out of you. And then you'll see how it's able to be relative to them.
But please make sure that you are patient with how this works, because they're not going to be so very warm and fuzzy to that the first time that they hear you say that. Don't meet them at their level. Again, we're talking about differentiating between a toxic person and toxic traits. And toxic traits can be shifted. Toxic traits can be changed. They can go away.
Right.
But a toxic person unfortunately,
is cancerous to any circumstance.
They're just a toxic person. And I think if we were to take the time to understand that, I hear so many people say, man, you know, there was this guy or there was this girl that I was dealing with, and well, it didn't work out because. And when I hear the because, it's like,
you really waiting for the big
that's why y'all didn't work out. Y'all could have fixed that with a decent conversation. And so that's why toxic traits and communications, they fuse one right into the other, because you have to be able to have those really ugly, really uncomfortable conversations. I mean, think about it this way. The very first time that you take your clothes off in front of someone, you're usually really uncomfortable.
Not me.
We're not using you as a yardstick.
We're gonna stay on topic.
We're not using him as
when a person is a toxic person, they will lack oftentimes the compassion or even the understanding that is essential to getting that conversation where it needs to go.
Yeah. Now I got a question just for our viewers. Like, have you ever had that experience of dealing with a toxic person. If you have, drop that in the comments real quick. I'd really like to hear some of your stories on some of the toxic people, or even if you want to share a toxic situation, if it's not yours or someone that you know, kind of share that so we can take a look at as a whole some of the situations, because for us we've experienced.
Yeah, we wear our shirts.
Yeah.
And when you have a person that is not ready to have that conversation, or when they are not capable of showing the concern for what it is that you're saying when you're expressing certain things to you. Expression is something that a person cannot tell you that you're wrong for. I always tell my children, I can't tell you that you're wrong for feeling how you're feeling. If I tell you that, there's no coming back from that. I may never be able to rectify that. So if you feel a certain way,
good one, Lucy,
because of a certain person or because of a certain thing that a person has done, the only way to get any understanding from that is to communicate it. Once it's communicated, that person should show some sort of compassion. There's a level of acceptance and accountability in that conversation to say, you know what, I was wrong. You know what,
this wasn't
I
right.
understand why that
This
made
wasn't
you
right.
feel this way, and I apologize. Let me check me. And self-analyzation is always a good thing. However, some people are just not at that level. So that is why my wife said that patience, because you're not going to tell a person that they have some bad character traits and the next morning they wake up and they are a blemish-free lamb.
Not even that the next day that they wake up and they're blemish free, but sometimes that conversation gets heated,
really heated.
I'll give you this. I was having a conversation at work, and I hope Reed that you tuned in. We were talking about something just kind of back and forth, and someone said, I've been talking to this person or whatever. Hilarious. That's what I was laughing at. And this person that I'm talking to said to me that I have poor communication. And that person's response was, well, I told him, I don't think that I have poor communication. And I was like, hold up, flag on the play.
If they're telling you that, they're telling you that with reason.
If they're telling you that you have poor communication, you probably do. You may need to take into consideration what it is that they're saying. Sometimes we're so defensive that we're not willing to accept the constructive criticism that the people who care for us are willing to give us.
Adulting has nothing to do with how you receive something. The level of maturity is what's going to separate whether you're an adult or not. I have heard some of the worst comments about my attitude. So instead of taking everything so personally, I did something about my attitude. That way, when someone comes to me and they say something that I don't feel like necessarily fits my shoes, but is an opinion, I can gracefully tell them, hey, you're entitled to feel the way that you feel. However, I know who I am and I know what it is that I'm willing to do and what I'm not willing to do. So when you know yourself, you have to know how you're going to respond to certain situations, because the last thing you want to do is say, you got me effed up. And because if it takes you there, the potential of that situation to get out of hand is highly
much more likely to happen
than you just saying, oh, okay. So that filter that my wife taught me to use so many years ago is something that I literally have to, like, you see everybody with the mask every day now. I have to take my filter with me because I was so easily manipulated to respond and react based on how it was that I felt, because I felt like I'm grown and I can say what I want to say. Absolutely. But in reality, in this world that we live in, you can't.
I mean, you can.
You might not want to.
But
what you put out,
I'm certain that you're not going to want to. But I'm going to say this, and I've said this to my husband. I grew up in a household where I I didn't even realize that we were taught emotional intelligence, but that was like our number one lesson in our household, that we did not respond to things from the emotional standpoint. If someone was saying something or identifying things about what you were doing or had not done, or they wished that you had done, we were taught, we were shown through my mother and my father
how to express
how
yourself.
to not just express it, but to take that information in, to be able to kind of like dissect it and then respond appropriately, um, based on what the true situation is. I'm a trainer. That's what I do. That's my job every day. And so when I train people, I always tell them that your emotion is actually a response to the situation. The situation is not the emotion. The emotion is the after effect. The situation is what needs to be discussed. So stay out your feelings, kill that, and let's talk about the situation itself.
Now, me on the other hand, I was raised in a completely different environment. And this is no disrespect to any women, but I was raised by a very emotional woman. And as a man, oftentimes not being taught how to illustrate my emotions or express my emotions, pardon me, it made me an emotional individual, responding emotionally and looking at everything far too personally to actually be able to even interpret what was said before I responded.
No, because there was too many emotions involved to begin with.
Who are you talking to?
Right.
So we all have those people, male and female, and that's not something that goes into play where it's a race thing. But in reality, the person who raised me and gave me my first view of life was a very emotional person,
an emotional
and responded to most circumstances from an emotional place.
Yeah.
So as I matured, I too found myself responding in a very similar fashion.
Yeah.
And it made me what some of y'all women may refer to guys that act that way. It made me that type of individual. And I had to outgrow that. I had to shed that. I'm grateful that I was quite young, maybe about 13 or 14, when I started to identify that. However, it was still something that spilled over into my 20s. It was still something that I now have to focus on in my 30s. Because when you practice something long enough, you take that with you. And that baggage that needed to be unpacked, well, I wasn't so apt to unpack a lot of those things, because we are creatures of habit and we carry a lot of things with us. So toxic traits, this is a wonderful conversation, but toxic traits are something that can change. You just have to be willing to identify them. Have someone that is in your association that will call you on your shit.
It's so important.
It's very important. It's vital to your health. Healing from different circumstances and traumas is very, very essential to you going to that next level, because you have to remember that even though you may be on the next level and you seem as though you want to look down on someone else, even on that next level, you start at level 1.
Yeah. One of the things that I grew up under, one of those pretenses, was when you have a situation or a circumstance, whatever it is, you have to deal with it accordingly. And I didn't realize, I swear to goodness, like I didn't realize how those things were shaping me as I became a young adult. Understanding the passion that my husband had when we first got together. In my mind, my deal with it accordingly was, I'm gonna just stay out his way.
Which led to a multitude of other issues, because she had so many emotions that she had not expressed, to where everything was just, it became the norm. Correct, Claudia? And I'm like, man, why you tripping? You know, you tripping. This was good last week, but it was never acceptable.
Yes.
It was never at all acceptable.
Yeah.
And you have to deprogram, reprogram, and relearn. And all of those things happen in relationships in order to continue and even see where you saw the potential in that relationship in the beginning. My wife and I have been through so many different things. It's been 9 years. However, if we actually wrote a book, which we hope y'all to buy, you would be quite surprised on how we've stuck it out. There's a lot of ugly that has not been discussed, but the beauty in that is being able to say, I want to give you what no one else was willing to give you. Knowing that she fell in love with my potential and I fell in love with her potential. We hope to die together with no potential remaining, because whatever it is that our hearts desire, and God allows our hands to touch, we're going to own it. We're going to bless it. We're going to have fun with it, and we're going to put the best amount of energy that we can in order to accomplish it.
Now, I just want to say, I know over the years, because we were always kind of like a presence on our social medias. Like once we got together, we were all over social media, his and mine. And I would hear people often say, oh my God, you guys are such a power couple.
Well, you want to be cuter than pictures, baby.
So he and I kind of made a decision a couple of years back, like, forget these pictures, forget this social media stuff. Let's make this stuff feel good.
That's right.
And it was almost like as soon as we said that, we went through more hell than before we said, before we said that we wanted to make it feel good to us, versus looking good to y'all. It was like all hell broke loose. But that's totally okay. We've been able to identify each other's toxic traits, and do what it takes, even though we may not have wanted to. We've been able to do what it takes to help each other unpack the root, because I'm big on the root cause of a situation.
Yes.
So your roof fell in. But I'm certain that it wasn't the ceiling that fell. It was probably a leak in the roof that caused the ceiling to get wet and then cave into the house.
Come on.
So it's always kind of like a little bit deeper than what it is that meets the eye. And we've both been able to kind of see past that surface level and say, like, there's something under there. What are you hiding?
Right. A lot of things in relationships go swept under the rug.
Yeah. Unintentionally, though.
And some intentionally.
Okay.
However, it's so important to be able to discuss things really and truly from a place of genuine concern.
Yeah.
It's so important for you to be able to address things the necessary way that you have to, so that your partner doesn't feel cheated.
Yeah.
I tell people all the times, and I'm not going to say it in the exact words that I said, but I'm like, the things that she does for me.
Oh, yeah.
No one else meets those needs for me. So that's the trump card right there. You know, that's the trump. And for me, we have come so far in communication to where now I don't have to say that. I don't have to illustrate that, because the respect comes right along with it. When people see her, they know who she is to me. And there's certain things that don't have to be explained because they're understood. When you can get to that place in your relationship, you'll see how things will start to evolve.
Yeah.
Full circle.
Yeah.
But it's going to take you to unpack that mess and have those very uncomfortable conversations. It's going to take for you to say, I don't like what you said.
Yeah.
Watch your mouth. Yeah. Listen, hold up.
Who you talking to?
Who you talking? It's going to take those things. It's going to take for you to say, sweetie, listen, I didn't like that, I don't really know what that was about.
Yep.
I don't know your intentions behind it. I don't know that person's intentions behind it. However, it made me feel uncomfortable. So what can we do
to correct
to
that?
make sure that we don't have
This.
that energy ever again? We want to put those barricades up and have certain boundaries around our relationship, about our friendships, as well as our private parts. Our private parts are our most inner sacred things that we don't want to expose to any and everybody. She is the only person that can tell you about my private parts. And those private parts are so precious to her that she knows how to store those things away for me, even when I get to where I expose too many things.
Yeah. The one of the comments that we just had on the YouTube live, it says bitterness, anger, loneliness, and self-worth. Those are some of the easiest identifiable toxic traits.
Mm-hmm.
Those are some of the easiest identifiable toxic traits. Someone who is bitter, outright anger, loneliness, and the lack of self-worth. Those are easily identified. Those are things that you can see. A person doesn't even have to talk to you to a certain degree for you to be able to identify some of those things.
Yes.
But there are so many things that are beneath the surface that go unnoticed. And you have your friends and you have your family and you have your, ex-lovers or whatever the case may be. And no one has taken the time to identify those issues. Communication is key to that. In order to identify a toxic trait or to even be in a position where you're willing to change that toxic trait, it usually has to come from one or two things. Either someone that you know really well and you respect what it is that they're saying, or a complete stranger.
Oftentimes, particularly with men, our situations are totally different. Our emotions and our habits and characters don't change until we have either life-changing events or life-threatening events.
Thank you for that.
So because that's the situation with us most times, you really have to be able to communicate. It's like when you first start dating and y'all spend all the time on the phone. You talk and you talk and you talk and you talk so much and you talk more and you talk about things that don't necessarily hold any significance at that moment in time when you're talking about it.
Yeah.
But how else do you figure out her favorite color? How else do you find out whether she likes tulips or sunflowers or pink roses? How else do you find out what size shoes she wears and whether she would like a stiletto or just a casual pump? Those things are the important things that you get during those little itsy bitsy conversations that you feel are just meaningless, but they reveal so many things to you. And sometimes the significance of an uncomfortable conversation can give you that same gratification.
One of the very first conversations that my husband and I had when we met was a conversation about love.
Yep.
And
and I ain't even want a girlfriend.
But that's not even why we were having that conversation. We were just kind of talking. We had just met and we were just kind of talking. And he was expressing some things and I was expressing some things. And he made mention of how, he couldn't believe that someone could do something when they professed so much love.
Yeah.
And do you remember my response?
People use love so loosely. That word and the phrase within itself. People are, oh, I love you. Hey, I love you. I love you. But to really, truly love a person, you have to respect them to the same degree. And not only respect them to the same degree, value that person and respect them, but you have to take everything that comes with that person. You will hear me say this over and over and over again. If you truly love a person,
I love my stilettos. You know it. Stop playing.
If you truly love a person, you are going to take everything that comes with them. And it may be a lot of situations where your mother doesn't approve of this person or their mother doesn't get along with you. The family members and relatives may have their opinions about different things. And we've dealt with all of that.
I was gonna say, I didn't care how my family felt. I didn't care. He was like, but that's your honor. That's I'm like, I don't care. I understood this. I understood very early on that what he was bringing into my life, they could not. Because if they could, then I wouldn't have needed him in the fashion that I needed him. And I understood I needed him in my life.
I felt as though family was always something that I wanted to have and possess. And my family was torn apart from time that, most of us go through that once the glue, is gone.
Yeah.
The great grandparents and the matriarchs in the family, pardon me, we were in complete disarray. So when I got to meet her family and see how they got together every Sunday, I was like, this is lit. Oh my gosh. I had no idea of the emotions and everything else that came along with that.
He had no idea that even though we were together every Sunday, and we didn't miss a single holiday together, we were still full of toxic traits and toxic people.
And my family, they'll reach out and touch you. We my mom, I don't know, she may chime in a moment or two, but my family don't.
I'm gonna just say it
no
this way.
Mess.
The second time that I met his mom,
you're not gonna talk about.
I'm not gonna talk about it. No, I'm not. I'm not gonna talk about it. I'm just gonna say this. Hey sis, when the second time that I met his mom, there was a whole situation that happened. I'm not going to go into the details because we're going to spare that.
Right.
But I'm just going to say the after effect of that was, I pick up the phone and I'm calling my mom and I'm telling my mom about it. And her response was, run.
Yeah.
Get as far away as
possible.
But
even in spite of that,
oh my gosh,
we remained and we've still dealt with each other. We have been through some things, man. They have no idea. They have no idea.
Okay,
her
so
mom tried to get me arrested.
So watch this. So I'll give you a really great example of toxic traits. My husband and I had taken each other through a lot before we moved to New York. Can we talk about that?
Oh yeah, we definitely can. Let's keep it real.
We had taken each other through a lot before we moved to New York. We moved to New York way back in 2013. It was actually one of the best things that could have ever happened to us.
Yep.
But it was one of the most trying times for us as a family.
Mm-hmm.
We experienced a lot.
We were still learning each other in a very, very important way because there were so many things that had not been discussed. There were so many topics that had not been touched.
And there was already pain.
And yes.
And there was already pain from both he and from I. So fast forward, we were in New York and he had his insecurities and I had my insecurities. And we got into it. I mean, we got into this big
knockdown, drag out,
argument. Okay. And so my husband, being who he is, he got all passionate and he had me running, y'all. I was gone. Right. And I was like, I don't want to do this with you. I don't want to do this with you. I'm not doing this with you. I don't want to do this with you. And he had me in such a fashion where I'm a little scary, y'all.
She maced me.
I did.
She maced me.
I did.
She maced me.
I did.
And she maced me again.
I had two options. Wait, I had two options. I looked up, I saw a bat, and I saw a can of mace. I figured the mace was the better way to go.
She maced me. She maced me. She maced me. She maced me again, and she took off running. And where did we end up at? We end up at our spiritual mother. We end up at the bishop's house.
We end up at the bishop's house.
Right? We run all the way from the projects, all the way up this long road.
No. Don't let him lie to y'all. No, we're going to tell the whole truth. What he did was after I maced him twice, dead in the eye.
Yeah.
To try to get him to stay away from, leave me alone. I'm trying to get away from this. This is becoming a horrible, this is a toxic situation, right? We're going at it. This is ugly now.
I went and I got the mace and I maced her back.
He came in the car to the bishop's house. He came in the car to the bishop's house and got out of the car at the bishop's house.
And maced her in front of the bishop.
And maced me in front of the bishop.
In front of the bishop, in front of the bishop's house, in her yard.
Yeah.
And I was cussing like a sailor. And Bishop said, yep, now get in the car and go. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
And
so imagine what that looked like to the people that was watching that.
Yeah.
Like this is a whole series that was happening in the complex where we were living.
And they had no idea what was going on. They just see this unfolding in front of them.
Oh my God, it was hilarious.
Long story short,
we're nuts.
It's 1:30 in the morning.
And he's washing
and
my
I'm
hair
washing her hair.
Because I have mace in my hair.
Because she has mace in her hair.
Yeah.
And I'm kissing her face. And I'm rubbing her feet and I'm rubbing her back. And we are having a conversation about why we feel the way that we feel.
Yeah.
Why we let it get that far.
Yeah.
How we allowed our emotions to take over.
Yeah.
All of these different things. So you guys have no idea, man, what it is taking to for us to get to this point. And not only that, how we've made it. You know what I'm saying? It's really and truly because we love each other. We are a real married couple that deal with real issues. Yeah, and we really love each other. Yeah. So everything that we are talking about is in hopes for you guys to see the potential, to have an understanding that there is somebody for everybody. And we hope that you have found that someone. And if you are able to identify the good things that are in that person as potentials for love, passion, understanding, and commitment, build on that.
Yeah, take it and run with it. Ladies, I want to make sure that I say that I know this may seem unfair or I don't even know what you want to call it, but it's just the truth. So I'm going to give it to you. It's so important that you understand your role in this man's life. It's so important that you understand your role even in your own life.
Come on.
In so many ways, women have forgotten the control that they have. You know, a man is the head, right?
Indeed.
Yeah.
But everything we do for a woman.
I was going to say, but where can the head go if ain't no neck attached?
Come on.
His movement is quite limited if you are not there to give him the freedom and the movement and the direction to go. Yes. And so with that being said, I really would like for us as women to kind of regain our understanding, to regain our strength, and understand who we are and what we are, because standards are a real thing.
That's right.
Standards are a real thing. Goals are a real thing. And it is okay for you to say, if you're not going to meet me at this level, leave me alone. It's totally okay for you to say that. And when you say it, mean it. Because if you do, then the man that's intended to be with you is going to respect that.
That's right. We have had some very, very uncomfortable conversations. And we've said to one another on several different occasions, if I can't have the best you,
I don't want it at all.
I don't want it at all. If you can't give me 100% of what it is that I'm looking for,
keep it all.
Say that now so that I know how to deal with me and I know how to adjust myself accordingly.
Yeah.
All of these things have built what it is that you guys see now.
Yeah.
We are so grateful that we did not throw in the towel.
Yeah, for sure.
We are so grateful, man, that we've outgrown some of the stagnation, the failures, the disappointments, and even the abuse.
Yeah.
We've taken each other through different forms of abuse, and we have been able to mature because we were both still very young children.
Yeah, we were still very immature. We had not unpacked our stuff, and we didn't realize that we were even carrying as much
stuff. Lord.
It did help for us though to come out of our current circumstance. We did have to move in order to get beyond a lot of our different circumstances. And we separated. We're actually, like, I feel like we're in our honeymoon stage of getting together
Finally, 6 years into the marriage, 6 years in, we are honeymooning.
Finally,
Y'all don't even know I
officially.
got a Gilligan hat. I'm getting ready to, and we are gonna just relax and enjoy each other as much as we can, because we finally got out of our mess. We got out of our own way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We got out of our own way.
And it's so crazy, guys, because we've done less together, if that makes any sense, like traveling and outings since we've been back together and trying to make everything work than before. I mean, before we were traveling all over the place and taking in all kind of sights and doing all kinds of stuff, and we still were not
on the same page.
Yeah,
not to say we were unhappy.
It was just difficult.
But it was quite,
it was a difficult road. It was definitely rough patches. And I'm not sure how we made it through a lot of that. You know what I mean? Like, I really don't know, but the time,
I know how.
You know how?
Yeah.
How we do it?
We pray.
Well, that's
a lot of people don't know the power of prayer. And I'm gonna say this for the fellas, importantly, man. There is a higher power that's out there that knows all, sees all. And as a man, you have to hold your position. It's so easy for people to take our credit. And even like I've shared with my wife recently, and even with my children, oftentimes we don't feel appreciated. Being a man, being a husband is a thankless job. Being a mother is a thankless job. But being the head, and truly the head of the household, not on the tax forms, but being the head of the household, your to-do list will never get any shorter. Your job will be so much harder, but it's all in how you look at it. If you look at the glass as if it's half empty, then that's what you're going to get. But if you look at it as if it's half full, then that's what you'll understand and you'll value, because to whom much is given, much is required. As the head of my household, most times I'm the first one up and I'm the last one to go to sleep. It's a lot that it takes. However, some people are made for this. I feel as though that I'm made for this. And AD and D, we're made for this.
This is the truth. Definitely. Sometimes you may have to ask your partner, what is it that you can do to show them that you appreciate them?
That's right.
Because for me, I was like, we'll spend some money. We'll go on a trip. And none of that was giving him what it was that he was looking for, to feel that true appreciation. And it wasn't until I finally, like, kind of quit and asked, like, what can I do, that I finally understood that it didn't take any of that.
Sometimes we just want our back rub. Sometimes we just want a kiss on the forehead and a rub on the head to say, baby, I see you. I see you trying. I know you giving everything that you got. I'm here. Is there anything I can do? Is there anything that you need help with? And that within itself is just all the more reason to keep going. We as men are oftentimes taken out of our position because of emotions. We're oftentimes taken out of our positions because of stereotypes and different things that play a part in that. However, if you have the opportunity to get it right, give it your all.
Yeah.
If you have someone, because everybody this day and age is for everybody. You have someone that is legitimately for you, that meets you halfway, that cares for you, that your children love, your mothers adores, that you can bring home to mama. Invest in that and do everything that you can not to see your investment come back void.
Yeah. Ladies, I just want to take an extra moment to say, like, right now with where our society is and the troubles that we're facing. You know, the Black Lives Matter movement is a real thing. I mean, I'm happy that it is a movement, but now is the time for us to love on these men, young and old. It is now the time for us to show them that we have their backs, that we care about them,
Yeah,
and that may be in the form of checking them. That may be in the form of correcting them. That
that's
may
right.
be in the form of saying, no, you can't do that. That
Hmm.
is still showing them that you care about them, because it's better that you tell them than them have to run into, the police and they tell them, because they're not going to use as many words as you will, and
That's
it's
right.
not going to come from as caring of a place right now. Although I know that we're tired, because we work and we cook and we clean and we care for the kids and we got to care for our partners. I know it's tiring, I know it's a lot, but right now, um I'm asking that you take the back seat and love on these men. They need it.
We are firm believers that medicine may not always taste good, but it's definitely necessary and vital to the healing process. So take your medicine, kick those toxic traits, and do what you can to make sure that you are communicating
Through those toxic traits.
through all of your negative.
But please, let's not get the memo messed up. Not in any way, shape, form, or fashion is AD or D telling you to
To,
stick with someone that
that
is
is
just,
mistreating you.
don't
That's
do
right.
that. Don't do that. Don't be with a toxic person. Don't stay with a toxic person. That causes people their lives.
Yes. Be able to identify what it is in you that could potentially be toxic, but also identify in the other person what it is that they are doing that is toxic, or what it is that you consider to be a toxic person.
Yeah.
Know your rules, set your standard, and know your boundaries.
And that's really all that you need to make sure that you don't find yourself in compromising positions. I can't tell you enough. I've lost people, he's lost people. I think, really and truly, if you get down to it, we've all
All
lost someone due to being in situations with toxic people. Do not allow yourself to stay in a situation that could cost you your life.
Indeed.
Love, companionship, and even to a certain degree, your children, it's not worth you losing your life, because none of that has any value if you were dead and in the ground. Please make sure that you understand the difference between toxic traits and toxic people. If you need help identifying that, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We really are a resource for you, to help you in a positive fashion. We just want to um, help people get together and stay together,
Stay together.
that have the potential to be great together.
That's right.
Um,
Love should not hurt. So if it hurts, maybe it's time for you to do some thinking.
I don't know about that, y'all. If you've ever given birth, that's a lie. Cause I love them babies. That's why I keep pushing.
I can't talk about that.
Oh, you can't, but
You
I
know.
can. I'm just saying that a lot of the times we have this idea or this concept that love does not hurt, but that's not true. If you've ever had to raise a child, you know about those sleepless nights, about the tears that you've cried that they did not see. That's a painful process. Sometimes love does hurt.
I have to agree with you on that.
Sometimes love does hurt. I really dispute some of these really awkward sayings that people come up with that they're just wrong. They're just wrong. If you've ever had to experience childbirth, doesn't matter if you push that child out or they got cut out or whatever the case may be, it's a painful process. The process beforehand and the recovery process, relationships, mother-daughter, father-son, husband and wife, siblings. These are painful processes because people are people and they will make mistakes, and you have to be willing to identify if the mistake is a mistake, or if the person is just a mistake. You know what I mean? Like, you have to be able to identify those things. So yeah, let's not look at it that way. Let's not take it in that fashion, because we may be misleading you, and I don't want you to believe that it was not it didn't feel like love when I maced him or when he maced me.
Right.
It didn't feel like that at the moment, but those were that was our stuff boiling over that we just had to face. And it was not, thank you, God gave his only son, and that was a painful process. You have to understand that in order for there to be good, there has to be a certain level of
But
evil.
that's a good point. With every battery, there's a positive and a negative, and it gives you a certain amount of balance and able to power and do what it is that it does. So, as you guys can see, we are capable of disagreeing. However, we need to be able to voice ourselves so that we get the correct understanding of what it is that the other one wants to say, and no one feels cheated. So, I applaud you and commend you on that. And in that fashion, to the same degree, the healing process is something that you need to be able to pay attention to. So, what we are doing is allowing you guys to take a look from the outside in to see not only some of the things that we've gone through, but some of the ways that we've implicated change and healing into our marriage and strengthen our relationship. Thank you guys.
For tuning in. Listen, I have not yet, but I will go ahead and drop the link for our YouTube channel right here in the comments. Please, if you have not already, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Do like, share, subscribe.
Like, share,
Everything that you
like,
guys
share,
are doing
subscribe.
makes a huge
share,
difference in
subscribe.
what it is that we're
Like,
doing.
share,
We'd like to
subscribe.
continue coming to you every Tuesday night with Twice the Advice. And though we're having a wonderful time kind of putting some of these things on the table, we have no fear or any shame on putting our things on the table because
That's
we
right.
understand it's what's going to help you guys to get to a greater place, or at least that's where our heart is in sharing this information. But don't hesitate to reach out to us. We have our Instagram, we have our Facebook, we have our YouTube, and our email address is available to reach out to us if there's anything that you would kind of like for Twice the Advice to give you our take on what it is that you're going through. Definitely. Oh, and let me drop this little jewel on you. We just made some definitive plans for our Valentine's Day party that will be coming up. So February 2021. Save the date. It's a Sunday, but don't worry about it. We're making some plans, and hopefully this will be post COVID-19. And we can really, really, really show you that AD&D is more than just a social media platform. More details to come soon. And yeah, we'll have the information up for these shirts. All of the shirts that you guys see us wearing with those quotes on them.
It's ours, baby.
They're ours.
EBD.
So, Encouragement by Design is
That's
actually
right.
the name of our clothing line. So you'll be seeing more of that coming soon. But definitely, if you're interested in our shirt, we're selling dope. We're selling hope, not dope. We're hope dealers.
That's right.
If you're interested in any of those, don't hesitate to reach out to us. But thank you guys so much for your time on this beautiful Tuesday night. We'll see you again next week, same time.
Tuesday, 10 p.m. We will be right here. Hope to see you there.
I hope to see you guys there. Have a good night, you guys.
Easy.